I can't do this any longer. Enough. F. Boeing.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Apologies, my voice is a little sort of husky, I guess. I've got a bit of a cold, so please bear with me. News that has just come out in the Boeing whistleblower case is that the note has been released. And I have to say the note certainly raises a couple of eyebrows. It seems kind of erratic. It seems all over the place. It's certainly not written left to right, top to bottom. It's sort of written in the middle, on the periphery, in circles, lots of words crossed out, words of different sizes. But he basically says, I pray that Boeing pays. I pray the motherfuckers that ruined, and then that's deleted, destroyed my life, pay. Then he also says, to my family and friends, I found my purpose, I'm at peace, I love you more. And then also says something about bury me face down so Boeing and their lying ass leaders can kiss my ass. And a couple of other things are mentioned as well. I must say this gives me a very different sense of Barnett. You kind of get a sense of his politics, you get a sense of his predilections in a way. Did you know that Barnett was an electrician, a cab driver, and a stock car racer? I'm not sure why I thought he was an engineer. And so obviously over a long period of time he learned his trade and eventually became a quality inspector. But I was quite surprised at how fairly unsophisticated the note is, and seems to be almost like written by a child on a scrap of yellow paper. The big question, though, is the note legit? What do you think? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Now, however John Barnett died, Boeing is somehow relevant to his death. He mentions Boeing in the note a couple of times. I pray Boeing pays. That's one reference. Fuck Boeing. That's another reference. He also talks about bury me face down so Boeing, so Boeing and their leaders. That's another reference. So there are at least 3 references to Boeing in that short little note. And so I don't think there's any doubt that Boeing is relevant to his death. The question is how relevant. Even if we say very relevant, that may still be true. But what does it actually mean to say it's very relevant? Now, it's one thing to say it's an aggravating factor. It's another thing to say that the duress was so extreme that he had no choice, kind of thing. And we kind of have a similar situation in a sense. Certainly reminds us of the Micah Miller case, where one's got to ask the question, who pulled the trigger here? In this case, the firearm used belonged to Barnett, but different to Micah Miller, who'd only had it for a couple of hours. Barnett had had his firearm for 24 years. He'd bought it in 2020, and it was found still in his hand in a locked vehicle. Professional hits, for example, by the mob often do try to make murders appear self-inflicted, and there was a strong sense of that here. Even if it's true that Barnett did take his own life, it's still related to Boeing. He was going to a 3rd day of depositions, for goodness sake, on the day that he died. So it was something that was pressing in on him. Now, ultimately, one would imagine CCTV would be the deal breaker here. So what does the CCTV reveal? And did the aging hotel, a Holiday Inn, have up-to-date CCTV? And I actually drove past that hotel when I was in Charleston. Now, according to the Seattle Times, quote, the Charleston Police Department and Charleston County Coroner's Office separately released detailed reports on Friday that included nearly 100 pages of incident reports, a 911 recording from the hotel worker who found Barnett, and a photo of the note Barnett left behind. Now, obviously, we have some idea now of what the note said, but the fact that there was a note is significant. And I have to say, speaking for myself, the note has quite a lot of what appears to be the color and the character of the author. It's also not just a simple one-liner, which one could argue could have been written under duress. Here he's gone to quite a lot of effort to say what he wants to say, including, using some choice words and using a bit of humor, So the other thing is if you had a hit, it would be very difficult to achieve in a public setting like a hotel. Now, the article goes on to note, we remain acutely aware of the sensitivity and public interest surrounding this case, according to the police statement released Friday. It is important to emphasize that our investigation was guided strictly by facts and evidence while remaining undisturbed by conjecture and external pressures. A review of medical records and interviews found that Barnett was under chronic stress because of this whistleblower case and was experiencing anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder and was grieving the 2022 death of his wife, according to the coroner's report. I do think the recent loss of his wife due to brain cancer, I just want to make sure what her name was. He was married twice, and his second wife's name was Diane Johnson. She was an FAA liaison for at Boeing for 28 years. She died in late 2022. So we can see that is very relevant. So you could say, is it the crisis that he had or he was going through with Boeing that drove him to do what he did, or was it his wife's death? Well, I certainly think you can't take his wife's death out of it. That was definitely weighing on him as well. He didn't have her as a support system. I also have to say, how Barnett appeared in the Netflix documentary and how he appeared later seemed very different. He seemed to have aged significantly. And what I mean is, you see him, I think the documentary came out, remember you had the Max jets falling out the sky, which was in 2019. So I think his wife was still alive at that point. And subsequent to that, I think he's gone through a very hard time emotionally and psychologically. And I can also tell you, and I know it's very different, but I've spent just the past 6 months fighting my short-term insurer for insurance money, and it is like a living death dealing with them. It's not just a waste of time, it's a pride-swallowing siege where you feel like you're never really getting anywhere. And I've also experienced fleeting moments of depression just dealing with this quagmire of just nonsense. And I know it's not the same thing, but I understand that feeling of banging one's head against a wall, preparing documents, having exhaustive conversations, and then getting no results. Over a long period of time, that does take it out of you. Now, according to the article, investigators recovered surveillance footage showing Barnett leaving Holiday Inn the evening of March 8th. His Dodge Ram, I think it was an orange vehicle, is then seen backing into a parking space minutes later. The truck remained in the parking spot throughout the night of March 8th and into the morning of March 9th. Now, this is important. That he didn't drive somewhere else and was intercepted by someone else and was held at gunpoint by someone else and was forced to do certain things by someone else. He didn't meet someone else. His vehicle stayed where it was, and on the morning of March 9th, video footage showed no one else entered or exited the truck, nor did anyone approach the truck. So the truck was parked somewhere where video surveillance could see it, and so you just don't see anyone else entering or leaving the picture other than Barnett. And I mean, that's cut and dried, isn't it? Now, while the truck is one element in this, the other element is the hotel and Barnett's hotel room. Were they able to monitor his or anyone else's movements into the hotel room? Because someone in the hotel, do you remember, said that Barnett seemed to be in good spirits the night before. Then, going back to the report, the vehicle brake lights blinked on and off around 7:20 a.m. March 9. The coroner's report said a Holiday Inn worker told officers he heard a pop sound that morning, but didn't think anything of it. Barnett's attorneys called him at around 9 a.m. He didn't answer. They called the hotel, asked for a welfare check. Hotel employees searched the hotel and parking lot, and then they found Barnett dead in his truck, which was locked. That's also important. The truck being locked with a key fob in Barnett's trousers is a tricky aspect. I mean, if you wish to pin this on someone else, how are you going to manage to lock the vehicle with the victim having the key in his own pocket? Also, killing Barnett in his vehicle in a hotel parking lot is arguably not the best place to do something like that.
Shift change or something.
There was also no evidence of anyone forcing their way into Barnett's truck, and the key fob, as I say, was found in his pants pocket. Barnett bought the handgun in 2000. Now, to me, this is the strongest evidence, the fact that the gun used was Barnett's. The note was written erratically. What's also worth mentioning is that his lawyers said that there was no indication that he would take his own life. I think there were. The fact that his wife died, the fact that he's going through what he's going through with Boeing, those are indications. If you ask him for anything more than that, well, people tend to be private about that stuff. People are different, and sometimes there are indications and sometimes there aren't. Sometimes there are notes and sometimes there aren't. Lord knows Boeing had a lot to lose at the time when Barnett was being deposed, and the tea leaves certainly made it look like foul play was at work or could have been at work. Are there holes in the CCTV net? It doesn't seem that way. Boeing is based in Charleston. I've been there and I've driven past the hotel, so it's hard to imagine the local police wouldn't be influenced by the power and proximity to Boeing, despite them claiming that they've remained undisturbed by conjecture and external pressures. We also know a second whistleblower also died recently, which is good luck for Boeing, if nothing else. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.